The story of cults is one of the darkest corners of human history. Whenever we hear about them, we imagine a group of people gathered around a leader who promises salvation, enlightenment, or a better life. Yet, behind those promises, there is often manipulation, isolation, and tragedy. The Anthill Kids cult, led by Roch Thériault in Canada, is one such case that shows us the horrific extremes to which blind obedience can lead. To understand its place in history, it is helpful to compare it with other infamous cults like Jonestown and Heaven's Gate, where different methods were used but the outcome was equally destructive. The Anthill Kids began in the late 1970s when Roch Thériault presented himself as a healer and prophet. He gathered people by convincing them he could cure illnesses and provide a spiritual path to freedom. His followers believed they had found a family and purpose. But soon, life inside the cult turned into a nightmare. Thériault enforced brutal discipline, punishing anyone who questioned him. Followers were forced to work endlessly, cut off from society, and subjected to physical abuse and torture. The cult did not just end in psychological control, it escalated to violence and even murder. What began as a promise of salvation turned into one of the most horrifying chapters in Canadian crime history. Now compare this with the Jonestown tragedy of 1978. Jim Jones was another charismatic leader who began with ideals of equality and community. At first, he spoke about social justice and helping the poor, which attracted hundreds of followers. But once his group relocated to Guyana, isolation became a tool of control. Surrounded by jungle, with no way out, the members of the People's Temple lived under constant fear. Eventually, Jim Jones orchestrated a mass suicide by convincing his followers to drink poison. More than 900 people, including children, died that day. The scale of Jonestown was unprecedented, and it shocked the world. Both the Anthill Kids and Jonestown reveal how a leader can use fear and isolation to bend people to their will, but the Anthill Kids remained smaller and more secretive while Jonestown ended in a single catastrophic event. Then there is the Heaven's Gate cult of the 1990s, which followed a completely different path. Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles convinced their followers that Earth was about to be recycled, and that the only way to survive was to leave their human bodies and ascend to a spacecraft following the Hale-Bopp comet. In 1997, 39 members committed mass suicide, believing they were joining a higher existence. Unlike the Anthill Kids, who endured violent abuse, or Jonestown, where death was forced upon many, the Heaven's Gate members willingly participated in a ritual they believed would save them. The belief system was different, but the pattern was the same: a leader presenting themselves as the ultimate authority, discouraging questions, isolating their followers, and leading them toward tragedy. When we compare these three cults, the similarities become clear. Each of them was centered around a charismatic leader who claimed to have unique knowledge or divine authority. Each demanded loyalty above all else. Each cut off members from their families, friends, and wider society, creating an enclosed world where the leader's word was law. Each discouraged critical thinking and punished doubt. And finally, each of them ended in suffering, whether through torture, poisoning, or suicide. But there are also important differences. The Anthill Kids is remembered for the extreme violence inflicted directly by the leader on his followers, turning everyday life into constant terror. Jonestown stands out because of its scale, the largest mass suicide in modern history, a collective tragedy broadcast around the world. Heaven's Gate, in contrast, was peaceful in its surface appearance, with followers calmly preparing for their departure, but still deadly because of the manipulation of belief. These differences show that cults are not all identical. They take many forms, but they all share the same dangerous foundation of unchecked power and blind obedience. What lessons can we take from these stories? First, cults often start with something that seems positive. People join not because they want to suffer, but because they are seeking meaning, hope, or healing. Leaders exploit these desires and slowly replace them with control. The warning signs are always there: a leader who declares themselves divine or beyond question, a group that isolates you from your loved ones, rules that demand blind obedience, and the rejection of independent thought. The moment someone discourages questioning or demands total loyalty, that is a signal of danger. These cults remind us that the human desire for belonging can be both beautiful and dangerous. In the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. Anthill Kids, Jonestown, and Heaven's Gate may have unfolded in different ways, but the core lesson is the same: power without accountability leads to destruction. By studying these cases, we can understand how manipulation works and how to protect ourselves and others from falling into similar traps. As we reflect on these tragedies, it is important not just to think of them as bizarre stories from the past, but as warnings for the present. Cult-like behavior can appear anywhere, sometimes in small groups, sometimes even in large organizations. The best defense is awareness and critical thinking. Asking questions, staying connected with loved ones, and refusing to surrender our judgment to any one person are simple but powerful safeguards. In the end, the Anthill Kids, Jonestown, and Heaven's Gate are not just stories of victims and leaders. They are reminders of the responsibility we all carry to guard our freedom of thought. History shows us that when faith turns into blind obedience, tragedy follows. But if we learn from these dark examples, we can ensure that no leader, no matter how charismatic, can ever again lead people so far astray.